The story continued as Elder Muga took everyone to sky-grazing mountain of Bipal mountain range. This was the place where you would live and train Hiran, as an immortal sect disciple. The Bipal mountain range was endless. Each core disciple would have their own mountain, and they would own all the resources of that mountain. Around 100 external disciples share the same mountain. Within the vast mountain range, from foot to the peak, a palace had been built in the fair mist. Every external disciple had a palace for living, training, and accommodating guests. All the disciples that passed the immortal promotion examination would abide at Wangtian Peak from now on. Elder Muga brought them to the highest peak of sky-gazing mountain, Wangtian Peak. It pierced through the clouds, and all you could see was endless clouds. Elder Muji then announced to the disciples that from now on they will be the official disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect. Elder Muga then began to read the ground rules and provided the disciples with the book The Basics of the Sword, which entails all the taboos and commandments of the sword sect. Besides this, a martial arts book and a sword manual were given out. Both were not useful to Wu Yu. Elder Muji's words gave the impulsive disciples some warning about the difficulties of their journey ahead. Elder Muga sent everyone away and asked Wu Yu to stay behind. Muga did not waste words, he walked to stand in front of Wu Yu. Firstly, he pulled out a jewel-encrusted box from an unknown place. Although the box was closed tightly, it still emitted fragrance. It was the spirit condensation pill. It is only effective after you have reached the 10th tier of the body refining realm. Elder Muga advised Wu Yu to not use it before reaching that tier. Next, a sword appeared in Muji's hands. It was a massive sword with the width of 3 fingers. On the hilt of the sword was written Demon Banisher. Wu Yu accepted the gifts. The spirit condensation pill was of no use to him at present, so he put it away. The other reward, Demon Banishing Blade, had a huge reputation. Even Wu Yu had heard of them when he was a prince, although he had not known that they came from Heavenly Sword sect. To his past self, it was a mystical weapon. He had never thought that he would receive it just like that. While leaving, Elder Muga advised Wu Yu to treat these treasures properly, and then went away. Wu Yu then chose a disciple's residence near the foot of the mountain. Within the residence, all was brand new. Anything that they could ask for was provided, with a quota of 10 external disciples. Within the residence, there was a huge, majestic immortal crane. From now on, it would belong to Wu Yu. Wu Yu decided to return to Yanli Mountain to beg a favor from Su Yanli, to let Sun Wukong accompany him in his later years. Riding on his immortal crane, he was knocked by the turbulence high in the air. It was an amazing feeling, with the entire vastness of the immortal sect laid out on display before Wu Yu's eyes. Being an immortal sect official disciple was indeed different from being a servant. Wu Yu had come to his immortal crane. By right, he had to land in Su Yanli Crane Garden. The crane was a sentient beast. Although it could not speak, it understood human speech. With a long cry, it landed in Immortal Crane Garden. A servant hurried up to take care of Immortal Crane, but the servant was not smiling. Instead, his face was ashen, saying, "Wu Yu, something has happened." Wu Yu was rooted in silence. The servant lifted a shaking finger, pointing at the wooden house on the mountain. Wu Yu immediately had a bad feeling. Could something have happened to Sun Wukong? Wu Yu's expression was dark. He was panicking inside, and he rushed over with all the speed he could muster. He was praying, "Please let nothing be wrong." The door was opened, and there were many servants standing around the house. Wu Yu was shaken by this, his mind blank. When he entered the wooden hut, he saw a shriveled old man lying on the floor. His eye was closed. Life had already left the corpse. Wu Yu's blood boiled, rushing to his brain. The veins in his eyes swelled, tinting his entire vision with blood. He rushed forward to pick up Sun Wukong's corpse. At this moment, all Wu Yu wanted to do was to cut these servants down where they stood. But turning back, he saw servants, with their body and face covered in blood. Their eyes were popping wide, trying to talk to Wu Yu. One of the servants told Wu Yu, it was not their fault, it was Sitijin's. We met Sitijin on the road and 3 others. It was they who caused Sun Wukong's death. Wu Yu's eyes were red. His chest was roiling like a volcano as he shouted Sitijin. The servant fell to his knees and told Wu Yu about the incident. One of the servants Gaolan asked them to stop. They laughed, and not only cut his tongue but also said that we were nothing but small fry in their eyes. It seemed that immortal sect disciples cannot kill each other or there would be grave consequences. That was why they had acted with impunity. The servant was shaking in fear and crying out in a heap. Wu Yu knelt on the floor and gave a deep kowtow. He would not forget. All that he had gained today was of Sun Wudao's making. To him, Wudao was like a father. Pity that heaven did not give him the chance to repay his kindness. He would blame himself. In this matter, he was not at fault. It was Citijin, the person who because of jealousy would kill anyone. What he hated the most about the whole matter was that he had not slaughtered this Citijin earlier. Wu Yu's body was raging with bloodthirst, anger, and killing intent. Wu Yu then sat on his immortal crane and flew towards Heaven's Lament, the mountain where the sect gathered. On Heaven's Lament platform, everyone besides Citijin was afraid of the consequences. Citijin consoled them by saying, "What is there to be scared of? There are 4 of us, and Heavenly Sword sect prevents disciples from killing each other. If they do, they will be kicked out and even punished with death. What can he do to us?" Citijin gave a cold smile, as though he did not care. As Wu Yu reached Heaven's Lament, his entire body, his blood, flesh, and bones were currently blazing with a golden flame. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a killing intent emanating from him. Wu Yu shouted out Citijin's name in fury, causing everyone to stop in their tracks. A moment later, the entire area fell into a commotion. This seemed to be a challenge. It was past noon, so the heat from the sun was piercing. When the rays of heat burned Wu Yu's skin, a golden light could be seen swirling from within him. Heaven's Lament platform had numerous sect disciples on it. All of them saw a youth who looked as though he was wretched in golden flames descending from the skies. Before the crane had landed, he had jumped off its back, slamming into the ground. Citijin, Wani Yang, Hua Qianyu, and Lu Muxue walked out in front of Wu Yu. From afar, they could already see the killing intent from Wu Yu soaring into the clouds. Citijin rose up and arrogantly said to Wu Yu, "I was wondering who this was. It looks like it was the servant from Yanli Mountain. I heard that you had managed to enter the sect today. Why did you not go to celebrate? Instead, you chose to come and find me." Citijin walked over to Wu Yu, his face turned overcast as he replied, "Truthfully speaking, Wu Yu, I was the one who killed that old man. I did not like the way he looked. What can you even do? Do you dare to challenge me?" Citijin felt secure in his backing. Hua Qianyu with a sinister smile said Citijin's younger brother is a genius who had almost reached the great way of Tao. There is no one in the sect that would dare provoke Citijin. Everyone around started to laugh. Such a sight was quite normal. Wu Yu raised his demon banishing sword towards Citijin, as he challenged him to a life and death duel. Later he increased his speed as he lashed forward with killing intent. The disciples and servants watching the whole matter were quite shocked seeing Wu Yu rushing to challenge Citijin. Citijin's face changed in an instant. He drew out a treasured sword, a cold light glinting from its edge. It was clear that it was of a lower grade than the demon banishing blade. He waved his long sword and utilized his Situ family's middle-grade technique, Eternal Frost Killing Sword, to retaliate. Citijin used Chilling Sky Frozen Earth move to counter Wu Yu. Citijin was secretly prideful in his heart. He had originally planned to demonstrate dominance over Wu Yu, but right at this moment, his move was smashed apart. Wu Yu closed the distance, using Tide Chopper. Wave Breaker exploded outwards in fury. Both hands clasped onto the demon banishing blade tightly as he extended his full strength, chopping downwards. His furious sword had collided with Citijin's Eternal Frost sword. Citijin's sword, upon colliding with the rampant demon banishing blade, had simply shattered. Numerous sword fragments embedded themselves into Citijin's body. One of them lacerated his lip, causing blood to flow endlessly. The demon banishing blade had been deflected slightly, and was unable to chop Citijin. A single move forced him back and almost claimed his life. Wu Yu in front of him seemed like a demon god. His gaze was icy as he stabbed Citijin's chest with his sword. Citijin was currently rolling on the ground, screaming in pain. No one had thought that Wu Yu possessed this courage. He truly wanted to kill Citijin. Wani Yang and their friends' minds were in turmoil. Wu Yu was truly furious. It had far surpassed their expectations. Regardless, 3 of them rushed forward and attempted to block Wu Yu. Wu Yu's eyes blazed with golden light as he warned them to stay away. But they are confident in their skills, charged at Wu Yu. As their swords clashed, Situjin, who was still screaming in pain, was crawling away, leaving behind a trail of blood, and trying to call his elder brother Situkang. There was a cry of fear. A shadow fell by Situjin's side, the entire body dyed with blood. Situjin was so frightened, he was trembling from head to toe. The one that fell beside him was the regal lady, Lu Muxue. She had died with her eyes wide open. A moment later, the entire heaven's lament burst into riot. The situation had escalated. Perhaps it was just Situjin's character was too terrible that no one from within the group of disciples around them chose to help him. Just as Situjin looked at Lu Muxue's body and was shivering, yet another body fell by his side. The person that had fallen on him was staring at him with widened eyes. This was the beauty, Hua Qianyu, who he had almost managed to take for his own, yet the same fate has befallen her just like Lu Muxue. Situjin had forgotten the pain he was afflicted with. He only felt immense terror. Yet the thing was that even if he regretted his actions, it was too late. Suddenly another body fell beside him. It was Wang Yiyang. He stared at Situjin with the most venomous glare he could muster before drawing his last breath. Situjin saw the blood-stained sword-wielding Wu Yu. Both his eyes were emitting golden light, and they penetrated Situjin's very spirit. Wu Yu told Situjin to be ready, it's his turn now, as he walked towards Situjin. That sort of abject terror and pain was unthinkable. When Wu Yu was right in front of him, Situjin was so frightened, he continued to crawl away and even peed his pants. Right at this moment, a voice shouted out and a cold light flew toward Wu Yu. Just as Wu Yu was about to deal the death blow, he was stopped. Situjin was just too lucky, he had been saved yet again. The one that appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes was Situkang. He was large of build and looked quite familiar to Situjin. However, he did not have an arrogant look on his face. He wore a set of fitting armor and looked very much like a high-ranking military officer. Situjin screamed with ear-splitting loudness to tell his brother to kill Wu Yu. His older brother was already at the 7th-tier body refining realm. Situkang arrogantly spoke, Wu Yu, your actions have killed fellow disciples. In the place of the sect, I will sentence you to death. Situkang withdrew a broadsword that looked extremely tyrannical. Wu Yu could differentiate the grudges he had and hence replied calmly, telling Situkang he had no grudges or grievances with him, he should leave. Situkang gave a cold smile and replied, don't get me wrong, I am not here to stop you but to kill you. Situkang charged forward, unleashing his sword. Wu Yu had no other choice. Before the eyes of everyone, he gripped the demon banishing blade and rushed forward. With the demon banishing blade, he was able to display strength with the whale's slaying technique on a whole different level. Both their weapons clashed. A gust of chilly air splashed from Situkang's sword, his sword attacks were imbued with cold energy. The attack was extremely dangerous and was countless times stronger. In a single exchange, Wu Yu was knocked back, flying over 10 steps, almost dropping his demon banishing blade. From the side, Situjin started mumbling to slaughter Wu Yu and turn him into mincemeat. Situjin would eternally remember this grudge. If he did not die today, he would ensure that Wu Yu would live a life of regret. Wu Yu with his whale-slaying technique clashed against Situkang with his eternal frost-killing technique several times, ultimately pushing Wu Yu back. Situkang's face was cold as he rushed forward with mysterious footwork. He raised his broadsword as he prepared to deliver a death blow. Wu Yu was trapped within the tiers of eternal ice, and it was difficult to retaliate. Just then Situkang burst outwards and rushed at him with the intent to kill. Wu Yu blocked his strike once again, but his weapon was smashed away and the demon banishing bald was knocked flying. Situjin scrambled to his feet, his face glaring viciously, and evilly told his brother to leave Wu Yu to him, so that he can torture him. He further made fun of Wu Yu, telling him to just die full of regrets who cannot even take his revenge. Situjin laughed raucously. Wu Yu was not content dying like this, he had just started his path of immortals. The scorching sun continued to sear the ground. Wu Yu's entire body emitted flames. He was not scared of Situkang. This was his self-confidence. At this point Wu Yu opened his arms, bathing his entire body in the rays of the sun. His entire body seemed to become alit with a golden flame. He raised his head, his golden eyes staring at Situ Kang and Situ Jin. He decided to undergo blood-changing rite in the midst of battle to activate golden battle body. All of the blood in his body began to burn with a golden flame. All of his body began to transform under the scorching true fire of the sun. Gradually, the blood throughout his body began to turn a gold color. As Wu Yu underwent the heaven-defying blood-changing process, the surrounding disciples were shocked and dumbfounded. All of their minds were blank. They could only focus on Wu Yu. Situ Kang's expression finally had a minute change, but he did not hesitate. Instead he staked his life as he thrust toward Wu Yu's throat. The heaven-defying blood-changing had completed. Wu Yu had properly broken through the 5th tier of the body refining realm. He had finally returned to the tier he was at when he was still a prince. Right at that critical moment, his eyes opened as the killing blow was about to land on him. Wu Yu let out a cold smile and reacted quickly. He reached out his hand and grasped the long sword with his bare hands. With a sound, the sword the tightly held in a death grip. Yet, no matter how Situ Kang struggled, he was unable to make the sword budge. It was only at this time Situ Kang's expression changed immensely. He could feel a ferocious and horrifying strength coming from within Wu Yu's body. It completely suppressed him. At this point in time, Situ Kang was already shocked. He could only rely on his genius brother, Situ Minglang, so he desperately asked Situ Jin to call him. However, his voice was cut off midway. Wu Yu used his other free hand to form a fist and pummeled Situ Kang right in his chest. An explosive reverberated as Situ Kang's armor was smashed into pieces. H spat out blood and crumpled onto the ground. His viscera had been completely shattered. The blood that flowed out was all black. Situ Jin's face was pale as he dropped onto the floor. The battleground had become eerily quiet. All disciples began to retreat. The golden light that wreathed Wu Yu that changed to red blood color would inevitably become a nightmare for some. Wu Yu clenched his fists as he moved forward to Situ Jin and told him to raise his head. Situ Jin tried to ask for forgiveness. Wu Yu's face turned grim. Killing 4 individuals had only caused some of the hate within him to dissipate. All that is left was Situ Jin, and he hated him the most. Situ Jin spoke with great difficulty, trying to tell him about his younger brother Situ Minglang. Both his eyes were full of bloody tears. It was a pity that he only understood the meaning of regret at this point. Wu Yu got angry seeing his arrogance. His eyes blazed with golden light, and with a swift fist technique, he gathered all of his strength in his hand and punched Situ Jin in his guts. From the impact of the punch, Situ Jin flew far away. Wu Yu turned over to pick up his demon banishing blade to behead Situ Jin. To him, this conviction of revenge allowed his own spirit to ascend, to release the shackles of the mind. He realized the immortal path to be cruel. In order to achieve greater heights, one needs to battle. They had to wage war against heaven, earth, humans, and demons. Only the strong would obtain the Tao. With the death of Situ Jin, the fury in Wu Yu's heart completely subsided. He stood on top of the heaven lament platform, no longer emanating any light. All of the sect disciples were looking at him. As Situ Jin's head rolled away, there was a man who emerged out of the immortal mist far away. He was accompanied by several youths. As they rushed over, what they rode was not an immortal crane but a huge, white rock. One of them was a 13-year-old genius, Situ Minglang, on the 10th tier body refining realm. He was not tall and had delicate facial features like that of a female. He was surrounded by a group of core disciples. Just as they rushed over, they saw the scene of Wu Yu decapitating Situ Jin and executing Situ Kang. The group of youth descended from the top of the rock. All of them were like Su Yanli. They all possessed the cultivation of a heavenly immortal. Situ Minglang stared at Wu Yu. In that instant, Wu Yu felt a fatal coldness. He was immediately plunged into a freezing world. Situ Minglang walked over, pace by pace, and asked the boy about his name. Wu Yu stood straight as he told him his name. He would not be cowed by this frost. Situ Minglang's eyes swirled with anger. As he realized that Wu Yu slaughtered his 2 elder brothers, he decided to torture Wu Yu before killing him. Wu Yu did not say anything. Situ Minglang inclined his head questioningly towards the court disciples, as he asked them for permission to kill Wu Yu. These court disciples were of very high status. They were probably sect protectors' disciples. One of them coldly said to Situ Minglang to not worry and deal with Wu Yu however he wished. Clearly, to Situ Minglang, killing him on the spot was not hateful enough. Situ Minglang thanked the disciples and walked towards Wu Yu. As he approached Wu Yu, a layer of frost covered his hand and then he released a gust of cold energy. It was like a savage tiger in the frost, and Wu Yu was a rabbit in front of it. Suddenly, the ice swirled and danced, the shards cutting him. Flecks of blood and scars appeared on his skin. Wu Yu had no idea. All he knew was that he had been taking revenge for Sun Wukong, and was not in wrong. As for how Situ Minglang would torture him, he could not imagine it. All he knew was that as long as he lived, there was a chance. Just as Situ Minglang was about to grab him and crush him at will, a long-skirted woman floated past Wu Yu's eyes. It was Su Yanli. Wu Yu was actually a little moved, seeing Su Yanli saving him again. Seeing Su Yanli's arrival, Situ Minglang let all his pressure dissipate. Situ Minglang asked Su Yanli to stay aside, as he wants to finish Wu Yu off for killing his elder brothers. Su Yanli stated, as Wu Yu belongs to my Yanli Peak. No one can take him away. Situ Minglang had not imagined that Su Yanli would actually protect a servant who had just entered the immortal sect. Even his cold face began to show signs of anger now. He stated, according to sect rules for killing 5 external disciples, including my brother, he should be punished, and then asked Su Yanli if she is trying to rebel against the sect's rules. Su Yanli replied, Situ Minglang, you don't have the right to enforce sect rules, only the elders and leader can do it. Situ Minglang was roused now, his anger was terrible to behold. Su Yanli was right. He did not have the right to enforce the sect's rules. The protector's disciples came up one by one and started criticizing Su Yanli to stay away from this issue, and as Wu Yu has caused such a calamity, even killing Situ Minglang's brothers, and finally told her to consider it as giving face and giving Wu Yu to Minglan to settle this issue. To them, Su Yanli's actions now were illogical. Wu Yu was just an insignificant disciple in their eyes. But perhaps she had set herself against them precisely because they were affiliated with the sect leader and sect protector. Su Yanli informed that sect leader is already being informed of the current situation. He will arrive shortly. These words stunned them. Sect leader Feng Shuya was the foremost person in the Heavenly Sword sect. He was a Jinan immortal of legends. Suddenly a golden beam of light descended from the skies, and a huge, golden sword floated in the air, pierced through the clouds. On the huge golden sword was a black-haired middle-aged man. Both of his hands were raised and his aura filled the heavens. Immediately everyone knelt on the ground. The sect leader's voice echoed in the space as he informed everyone that he know and understand all that transpired here today. Situ Minglang said composedly to the sect leader to let him handle Wu Yu, as he has killed 5 sect's disciples and violated the rules. Sect leader Feng Shuya was unperturbed by Situ Minglang, saying, the Situ Jin group has murdered a 100-year-old man. They had already lost the bearing of a martial cultivator. They were unfit to be disciples in Heavenly Sword sect. Their deaths are not regretted. Situ Khan helped the disgraced, and he did not die innocent either. He further said that disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect practice the righteous path and immortal Tao. Situ Minglang had not thought that such a judgment would be passed. He was stunned. Situ Minglang knew if this continued, he would have no hold on Wu Yu. He tried to speak, but this objection stuck in his throat and was not voiced under the suppression of the sect leader. Feng Shuya further said that, as Wu Yu had killed 5 people in succession, although those 5 were wrong, Wu Yu's methods were overboard. He then sentenced Wu Yu to be sealed for a year to reflect on his actions and correct his behavior. To Wu Yu all of this was more than he could process. Situ Jin and the rest, their death were not worth regret. And for himself, sealed for a year. 1 year in jail, although it was a punishment, in truth it was for his protection. He was deeply shaken and grateful. Situ Minglang in a fit of anger fought the pressure of the sect leader's power, and bit his words, telling the sect leader, how could Wu Yu be punished so lightly after killing 5 people? In the air, the Jinan immortal looked at him and threw his words back at him, telling him how could he become a Jinan immortal, he sides with evil. Each word of Feng Shuiya cut deep into Situ Minglang's heart like a sword. Situ Minglang's face turned to Wu Yu as his eyes shimmered with the light of the hate, and told Wu Yu to enjoy his life for a year. Wu Yu was still in the joy that Feng Shuiya had brought. But hearing Minglang's voice, he mildly replied to him that he will not be a match for him in a year. That's all for today. If you like part 4 of this manhwa, just comment below. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment to get epic content on this channel. See you next time.